Question. Hey everyone, it is Brian Barron, Director of Skincare Research at Paula's Choice Skincare, here with you on a Wednesday for the weekly YouTube live chat on the Paula's Choice channel. Thanks for tuning in live. Today's topic is going to be salicylic acid, also known as beta-hydroxy acid, don't need these quite yet, or BHA. And it is an amazing ingredient. I'm already getting tongue-tied. It is an amazing ingredient for skin. I will tell you why. I'll also be answering your questions during the hour about BHA, about exfoliation, what salicylic acid is best for. You can ask me other skincare questions too. That's fine. I love it when they're about Paula's Choice products. That's my specialty. But whatever's on your mind, skincare-wise, lay it on me for the next hour. I will do my best to get to all of your questions. We've been getting asked a lot in the media lately, particularly overseas, about niacinamide. And these, even though we just launched a new niacinamide product that if you haven't tried and you have the concerns that it's meant for, which is the enlarged and also kind of stretched pores due to sun damage, stubborn bumps, particularly those related to having oily skin. It's kind of a game-changing product for both of those concerns. I wish I could say that it would work equivalently for everyone, but that just isn't true for any skincare product due to various factors that are beyond any brand's ability to control during the formulation stage. We do our best, but then, when you put that product out in the world, sometimes different things happen. Not that it's horrible, but the point is not everyone is going to have 5-star results. I wish it was different, because we put so much thought and effort into looking at the research and how the ingredients work together and our own in-house knowledge. And we've got a lot of smart people and dedicated people at Paula's Choice. You see my face more often, but there's more of us, believe me, including Paula, who I was just emailing with before the show about niacinamide. Anyway, little aside there. So let's talk about salicylic acid. It is one of our favorite ingredients. It is known in the research as a keratolytic, which is a fancy way to say that it exfoliates. In order for it to be effective in a leave-on product, the concentration needs to be between 0.5% and 2% when you're in the realm for just dealing with acne, breakouts, clogged pores. There are higher percentages of beta-hydroxy acid, salicylic acid, available for more stubborn concerns, more advanced signs of sun damage, or that combination of, and isn't this fun, signs of aging as well as continuing to break out, continuing to have issues around pores, continuing to have issues around oily skin. One of the things that makes salicylic acid so incredible for oily skin and clogged pores is the fact that it is lipid or oil soluble. So unlike alpha hydroxy acids like glycolic, lactic, mandelic, tartaric, malic, and so on, and even to some extent azelaic acid is a little bit lipid soluble, not quite the solubility that salicylic acid has, owing to its different molecular shape. But what salicylic acid can do is penetrate through that oil on the surface and get into the pore lining where the oil buildup can cause, mixed with dead skin cells that would normally just shed, as well as what's called follicular debris, which is an easy way to think of that is tiny hairs. If you were to look at an actual cross-section of a pore, which is technically called the pilosebaceous unit, you would see that there are very, very tiny hairs that are lining that structure. Those hairs, just like other hairs on our body, shed in order to make way for newer hairs. And as those hairs shed, they're very small, they can get mixed up in the, for lack of a better word, the gloopiness of that sebum dead skin cell mix. So what salicylic acid can do is penetrate through that mess. It's almost like Drano for your pores, but a heck of a lot gentler, and it dissolves that buildup of the oil in the dead skin cells and the tiny hairs and restores a freer flow of oil and dead skin to the surface. That is pretty cool, and in many ways makes salicylic acid a oneer in the world of skincare, and it can do that relatively quickly. Another facet of that, I just found a 2019 study that elucidated a little bit more about how it does this, but it's the terminology, unless you're just kind of knee deep in this, is kind of technical, and there's a lot of acronyms for the different inflammatory markers and pathways in skin, and yeah, I'm not going to go into detail about that, but the bottom line in terms of a benefit is salicylic acid also has a sebum thinning effect. So for some people, not everybody with oily skin has this issue, but some people certainly do. The way that your sebaceous gland makes oil, it's one thing if it's making too much and you just have classic oily skin, you're shiny, you're always blotting, your makeup doesn't last, things just seem to slide off. That's a frustration. But you can also have that excess oil and deal with the fact that your sebaceous glands are naturally producing a thicker sebum. Now, interestingly, you can be producing this thicker sebum deeper in the pore lining where the sebaceous gland lives, and that sebum is of such a thickness that it actually has a harder time making it to the surface of your skin. Assuming your skincare routine doesn't include drying or dehydrating products, the situation I just described with the oil being thicker, you might describe your skin as dry on the surface, but it doesn't feel uncomfortable because you have enough oil in your pores to avoid that deep down discomfort. And you may also be one of those people who has a dry surface skin, but you still have clogged pores and potentially even acne as well. So that is another benefit of salicylic acid, is that by thinning that sebum, it not only helps avoid those backups in the future, as long as you keep using it, but it also further helps to restore that movement of oil and debris through the pore lining like it normally would do before things got stopped up. Again, it's kind of like a drain. You clear the pipes in your bathroom sink, and all of a sudden your water flows down the drain at the rate that it should. It doesn't get all backed up. The other fascinating aspect of salicylic acid, BHA, is that it is naturally anti-inflammatory, and to some extent it's also antibacterial. That is why for some people with mild or occasional mild acne, salicylic acid can work really well on its own. Well, gentle cleanser, sunscreen, yada yada. But in terms of an acne treatment, salicylic acid in that case can work just fine on its own at like a 2% strength. You don't have to use topical antibiotics. You don't have to use benzoyl peroxide. If you have classic acne, though, you're kind of always breaking out all over the face, maybe not a lot, but they're just sort of always there. In that case, you will almost certainly need to couple a salicylic acid leave-on exfoliant with a benzoyl peroxide product. So because of salicylic acid's relationship to aspirin, which is acetylsalicylic acid, it retains much of aspirin's anti-inflammatory abilities. That further helps relieve the visible signs of acne. Acne in almost any case, it depends on your skin color. For somebody very white like me, the acne is going to be red. It's going to be angry looking. That is the inflammatory response that your body unleashes in order to try to deal with the acne, which unfortunately in most cases ends up causing further inflammation unless you are intervening some other way. Skincare would be the place to start. The anti-inflammatory properties, I'm doing all this off the cuff, so sometimes I might just have to stop and rewind. The anti-inflammatory properties of acne are also why it is beneficial in many cases for people who are struggling with rosacea. And if you have rosacea and acne at the same time, BHA can be a game changer, assuming the salicylic acid doesn't aggravate your rosacea. I wish it was a slam dunk to make that recommendation for people struggling with the redness from rosacea, but unfortunately not everyone with rosacea can use salicylic acid. If you are not sure and you're also dealing with clogged pores, excess oil, and breakouts, and rosacea, give it a try. Start with a 1% concentration and work up from there. Okay, now let me segue. I see the questions piling up, and maybe I'm going to address some of these. I consult our social media team. They're the ones that are interfacing with many of you on our different platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And they are an incredibly dedicated team. If you're watching, hello. But I got some questions from them that you ask quite a bit about BHA. One of the big ones is, can you use BHA with retinol? And the answer is yes. This assumes that your skin will tolerate that combination. And there's no reason to approach that mix with trepidation as long as the products that you're considering are well formulated and formulated to be gentle. As an example, because I know Paula's Choice products best, we have several BHA exfoliants. Okay, even though salicylic acid is naturally anti-inflammatory, we still add soothing ingredients, anti-irritants to the formula to enhance the experience and to even further minimize the risk of any negative effects. The amount of green tea, for example, in our global bestseller, the 2% Skin Perfecting 2% BHA liquid, is a primary reason why so many people can use it and just get beautiful glowing results. They're not dealing with dryness or flaking or other signs of irritation. They're not tipping that scale. We always take that into account, and the same is true for the other leave-on exfoliant type products that we make, as well as the retinol products. There are a lot of retinol products out there. I'm not naming names because there are certainly some good retinol products out there from other brands. Great retinol products from other brands. But it's surprising how many of them are in a very bland base. You're getting your retinol, maybe it's even a fragrance-free formula, but there's really not much else there to support it and to enhance skin's tolerability and its adjustment period, which some people need, to retinol. So all of that is to say, if you're shopping within the Paula's Choice line, I think that you would do very well using BHA and retinol at the same time. However, if you find through that experimentation that you are seeing some visible signs of trouble, it does not mean, I don't want you to think that you can't use either product. What it most likely means is that you either need to work through a bit of an adjustment phase, or your skin will do best by separating application of those two types of products. So that could mean using your BHA exfoliant in the morning and your retinol product at night, or vice versa, depending on the textures. It is totally fine to use retinol during the day as long as you're protecting your skin with a broad spectrum sunscreen. SPF 30 or greater is ideal. If your favorite SPF is a bit lower than that, just make sure you're applying it liberally and not spending any excess time in the sun. Try to, hats, sunglasses, all that fun stuff. Another question is, can you use BHA with AHA? Yes, you can. Again, pay attention to how your skin responds, adjust frequency of usage, again, based on that response, and know that either one of them, depending on your skin type or concern, can be fine on its own. So I think that because a lot of our customers get super excited about our exfoliants, particularly if they try one of them and they see the great results, that they think, and we have so many of them. We have a lot, really, I think more than any other brand. They're wondering about, is the grass greener? I had great results with the BHA. What if I add an AHA? Will I get even better results? What if my concerns and my skin type kind of intermix between AHA and BHA and they both sound like they'd be good for me. What do I do? Totally fine. And this is what a lot of us at the company do, is we alternate between exfoliants. Other than Paula, who is a diehard with the 2% BHA liquid, most of the staffers that I interface with go back and forth between our AHA and BHA exfoliants, depending on what's going on with their skin. I alternate. I'm an exfoliant once per day at night person, and I go back and forth between our Calm 1% BHA lotion, the Resist Pore Refining Treatment with 2% BHA, which is a liquid, or the Resist Daily Smoothing Treatment with 5% AHA, which I'm currently out of, and I just placed a Paula's Choice order like an hour ago, and I did not add that to my cart again. What is wrong with me? So anyway, because I've been out of that one, I've been using the Skin Perfecting 8% AHA lotion, which is our newest AHA exfoliant. So it's a little on the richer side for me, having combination skin, but being that we're in the colder winter months in Michigan, where I live, that texture is actually working pretty well because my combination skin, the oily part of it, calms down, and I'm just overall less oily in the winter. Most likely due to the drier humidity. All right, so the other question they had was how to choose a BHA exfoliant from our line. And I think some of you will probably be asking more specifics about that, so we'll go into that as well. Okay, big deep breath. I'm wearing my old glasses. Some of you who caught the show last week may have seen that I had new glasses, which are actually a better prescription for me, but I could not figure out why they were computer glasses, which I haven't had before. These are just reading glasses, and I was only able to see well out of those new glasses if I was looking like straight on, and if I moved my head or if I moved my eyes, look down, look up, things got kind of blurry, and then they'd come back into focus. So I didn't let on about that during last week's chat, but if you go back and watch it and you're noticing like my eyes looking either like really tired or just extra active, that was probably why I'm just like having a heck of a time focusing on things. So I go back today. I went today back to my eye doctor, and they looked at it. They called it a spec check, and as I thought it was something I was doing wrong and I just needed to adjust to it. Long story short, the company that made the lenses actually did the prescription wrong, because he reset everything up in that, thing they put in front of your face. Better, worse, better, worse. And when he dialed in my prescription, and I was holding things out at arm's length and kind of like I'm at the computer right now, it was fine. Can you believe that? They made me the wrong prescription. So I at least said, can you expedite? Because the other one took 2 weeks. So they're going to do that. They'll be here in about 5 days. So hopefully by next week's show, you'll see me in my preferred glasses. But here we are today. Andrea, first question. Hi, Brian. Is salicylic acid pH dependent to be effective? It is. Thank you for reminding me about that. Heard another YouTube channel say it is, but I didn't think so. Please clarify. So it is pH dependent for maximum results. One of the reasons why our lineup of BHA exfoliants is so effective is because we adhere to that tight pH guideline where all of our BHA exfoliants are formulated between a pH of 3 and a pH of 4. They're also formulated with respect to the pK value of the acid, meaning that we balance the formula to ensure that you are getting the acid form of the ingredient, which is what you want for the exfoliating action, not the salt form. And that's what happens when the pH starts creeping much past 4. The salicylic acid in a solution or in an emulsion starts to do what's called salting out. And not only is it harder to keep solubilized, meaning mixed, another word would be emulsified, throughout the formula, it is also harder to get it to have any sort of exfoliating action because you're getting less of the acid and more of the salt. And ironically, as the pH creeps even higher, Like, let's say you're looking at a BHA exfoliant that's like a pH of 6.5. So still on the acid side, on its way to neutral, but at that point, the BHA is really, you're getting much more of the salt form of the acid, and that can actually be irritating. So if you've ever used a BHA product before and it caused signs of irritation, flaking, redness, dryness, and it didn't have some of the usual suspects in it, like denatured alcohol, peppermint, menthol, eucalyptus, camphor, witch hazel, that may be why that the pH was high enough that not only were you not getting much keratolytic action, but you were actually getting more of the salt form of the acid as opposed to the acid form. So yes, pH matters. The ideal pH range for salicylic acid to be effective is between 3 and 4. Can it work in different concentrations? Yes, to varying degrees. That's one of the reasons why it tends to be somewhat effective when it's used in a acne cleanser. In that situation, because of the brief contact cleansers have with skin, I like to say that it can kind of like kickstart the exfoliation process and convey a little bit of antibacterial, a little bit of anti-inflammatory benefit. But for best results, especially if you're struggling with acne, I would never tell someone just rely on salicylic acid from a cleanser. You need it from a leave-on product in addition or in lieu of, and you can just use a regular cleanser, meaning non-medicated. But it is fine to use a non-medicated or a medicated cleanser with salicylic acid, provided the formula is gentle, fragrance-free, doesn't have any needless irritants, any harsh drying cleansing agents. Acne is not about drying out the skin. You cannot dry up acne. It's not about skin being wet or too moisturized. So Valerie, or Andrea, thank you for reminding me of that. Let's move on to Valerie's question. She says, question about the 2% BHAs. Are these equally effective at cleaning out pores, resist daily pore refining, skin perfecting 2%? The skin perfecting 2%, if you're referring to the liquid, because we also have a gel and a lotion, that is our most penetrative 2% BHA formula, other than the clear anti-redness exfoliating solution extra strength, which is the exact same formula. And it's interesting because we've had some customers tell us over the years that they tried the clear extra strength and it didn't work as well as the skin perfecting 2% BHA liquid, so they went back to that. And we're just like, oh, okay, well, happy that you still have something that works, and yes, we'll do the exchange or whatever the situation is, but it's the same formula. So I not that there can't be little nuances, from batch to batch, but we take every step along the way to make sure that doesn't happen. But I kind of liken it to a little bit to the placebo effect, but not as extreme. But it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Okay, so yes, the 2% BHA liquid, Valerie, would be more effective because of its better penetration, but the one in Resist isn't that far behind. It just uses a different delivery system that is a bit slower, for lack of a better description. That one works really well for me for a 2% strength. I'm not someone, I'm an outlier when it comes to using the skin perfecting 2% BHA liquid. I can't do that one every day or I will start to see some flaking. But I can use the Resist Daily Pore Refining Treatment 2%. So it's not as much about the 2% salicylic acid my skin can't handle, it's the base and how that causes the salicylic acid to penetrate. Himba95, hi Brian, how can I try to prevent my annual springtime allergic skin reaction, seborrheic eczema? Maybe by improving the skin barrier. Derms haven't been any help so far, thanks in advance. That's a good question. Building up the barrier definitely helps. It's not going to be foolproof. But what it will do, in all likelihood, is make the reaction, make that experience less of an issue, less irksome. The more that you can build up, strengthen, preserve, repair your skin's barrier, its first line of defense, the better it can handle anything that's thrown at it. And by that, I'm not saying go out and buy a bunch of drying, irritating products that tingle because you love how they feel and hey, you've got that strong barrier, no worries. No, it's your skin has enough to worry about without adding anything like that, just from living, from air pollution, from blue light, from UV light, uh, just the various things we encounter in our environment every day that are by and large beyond our control. Nobody wants to live like a hermit, with all due respects to the hermits out there. So I would say doing that, I would be curious, just because it's such a good anti-inflammatory, if you haven't tried topical CBD, I would look into that. We have our CBD skin transforming treatment milk that is currently available on a separate site. And then you can also get it on Nordstrom's website. We've been hearing really good things about that. A lot of us like it. It's I use it occasionally. It's a little on the richer side for me, but I've experimented with different CBDs in the past 9-10 months, and I see good results from it. Now, whether or not that's just from the CBD, I don't know, because I've only tried one, I guess you'd say pure CBD type product, and I had to stop using that because it was making me break out. It was a pure oil, and I think it was just too heavy for me. The other thing that you could try, particularly just during that spring season, is to start applying a 1% hydrocortisone type product, maybe once a day, only to the affected areas. There are some good ones out there. The Cortisone 10 line makes a couple of lotions in a larger tube that are fine to use on the face. We're talking short-term seasonal use, so I don't want you to worry about the cortisone, especially not a 1% concentration, thinning your skin. That is really more of a concern for longer-term, meaning like year-round use, and particularly more so with the prescription topical cortisone steroid-type creams than what you can get over the counter. So if you haven't explored that option yet, I think that would really help. And along with using great products to help rebuild and replenish your barrier, and give that CBD milk a try. Oh yes, as an adjunct to your question, Himbe 95, I do think BHA could help in terms of reducing that excess sebum. And I was going to say, because it's eczema, maybe the 2% BHA lotion would be appropriate, but I think you could also use the 2% BHA liquid and not have it be a problem at all if you prefer that liquid texture. Ace1 asks, what would you recommend to fade surgical marks and scars, assuming it's healed? So, scars, even when scars generally, especially from surgery, when it's more of a precise cutting into the skin, which, not that doesn't cause a wound. It is a wound, but there's a difference between that type of a cut and one that you get from a fall or a bad accident, where the skin may be just injured in several different ways at once, and you've got, concerns about bacteria and infection and debris getting in there, and if you get that road rash if you fall off your bike, that type of thing, versus being in a sterile operating room where every precaution is being taken to sterilize the area, the tool is clean, but the fact of the matter is, as I mentioned, your skin is still wounded and has to go through a healing process, along with, with the starting factor presumably being sutures. So in terms of a scar, even when it looks totally healed, which happens usually in about 3 to 6 months, sometimes less, depending on the depth of the wound, but they continue changing and improving in most respects for about 2 years from the date of the injury. So if you are still in that time period, and then you start using something that says it's a scar cream or a scar gel or whatnot. And we used to have a scar reducing serum that was fantastic. Side story as far as why we discontinued it for another day. But what I'm getting at is that if you start putting a product like that on your scar, assuming that you're also being gentle with your skin, you're not exposing that area to sunlight without protection, you're not tanning, it's possible that what you're going to see at the end of that period is a placebo effect. And meaning that the skin, that the improvement you get that you may attribute to the product would have just happened naturally on its own as your skin continued to heal that scar area. If you are past that point, then yes, I think that using a topical product would help quite a bit. And ingredients to look for would be vitamin C, retinol, believe it or not, is a great option in that regard. Potent antioxidants, quercetin, which is actually naturally found in onion. It's one of onion's antioxidants, and it's one of the reasons that a lot of people have success with the Mederma line of products because they have onion extract, which is a source of quercetin. I'm of the mind that I would rather have the pure stuff. It's kind of like we know that epigallocatechin gallate is the most active antioxidant in green tea. And although green tea leaf extract and whatnot is a great ingredient for skin, in terms of the powerhouse and what's driving that, it's the EGCG primarily. So same thing with using the onion extract, it's the quercetin that's driving that. So and it's really best to use the pure in this situation. So if you can find a product, our Resist Ultralight Super Antioxidant Concentrate Serum is a good source of quercetin, but you can find it a lot with other ingredients. I love niacinamide for that too. Niacinamide, great ingredient for helping skin to become stronger, rebuild its barrier, continue the healing process. It helps the body make more of this, or not your skin to make more of the ceramides it needs. So it's multi-benefit there as well. Lots of options. Experiment with one or two and be consistent about it and see what kind of improvement you get. Okay, we're about at the halfway point here, and I want to get to as many questions as I can. Got that one. Brody says, and if you could answer it. Wait, Brody, where's your first question? But love, what's your second question? If you could answer a second question, is it a good idea to use BHA as a penetration enhancer by layering it when using other actives such as antioxidant serums? Yes. No reason, it will have that effect, but keep in mind that it's going to enhance penetration, but the ingredients that are of a certain molecular size are going to stay where they're supposed to. You know, it'll enhance penetration of the ingredients that are small enough to go further into the skin, and for some of those that aren't, it's going to they'll go a little bit deeper, but we're talking a little bit deeper in the very superficial layers, which is good because all layers of skin need those great ingredients. So it's not. I caution people not to get too carried away with thinking that everything has to penetrate as far as possible into the skin. There's a time and a place for that, and certain ingredients that you want to go a bit further, like peptides. And the trick with that is getting them to remain stable, so that, again, generally speaking, our skin is designed to keep things out. That it's our body's first line of defense. So there's definitely been a lot of study and research into, from a chemistry standpoint, how do we get ingredients to penetrate past or circumvent skin's natural inclination to keep them out. And with peptides, that's been a big, in the earlier years, in the early 2000s, that was a big stumbling block, is that, yeah, you've got these peptides in a formula, and it looks good on a label, but chances are when you put them on the skin, they're really not going past the surface. They're being broken down by enzymes in the skin that are simply doing their job. They don't recognize this peptide, foreign invader, whatever, and they're breaking it down before it can reach its target cell. Well, now we know a lot more about that whole system and how it works and how to synthesize, create this specific type of peptide in a delivery system that'll get it to where it needs to go. So that's one example of a group of ingredients that you want to go a bit further into the skin and take steps to ensure that they have a safe journey, a pleasant flight, if you will. And then there are other ingredients like certain antioxidants that you want to stay in the uppermost layers of skin so that they can further assist your first line of defense in protecting what lies beneath, which is the living stuff. And by the way, What Lies Beneath was a fairly effective thriller from several years ago. That scene with Amber Valletta under the water. Ooh. Okay, I digress. MDW, I heard that retinol and tretinoin is deactivated by light. Is this true for TV and indoor lights or just sunlight? Also, can I use BHA9 over retinol? Yes, you can use BHA9 over retinol, but I would suggest putting the BHA9 on, well, I take that back. If you are applying the BHA9 over a larger area of concern, put it on before the retinol. Otherwise, if you're spot applying it, which is what we do here in the Barron house, dab it on afterwards. And you don't have to wait for the retinol to absorb. You can if you want to, but from a effectiveness standpoint, not required. Your first question about retinol and tretinoin being deactivated by light. That is primarily from what I've seen about unprotected exposure to UV light. Tretinoin is definitely more vulnerable than retinol. Retinol has its stability issues, yes, but to light and air, but tretinoin is even more volatile when exposed to that. So you can solve that issue, though, by making sure your skin is protected with a great sunscreen. So it's a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's a myth, but it's a bit misleading to offer the tip that you should never apply tretinoin or retinol during the day because, because they just won't be effective. That advice may be well-meaning, but it is likely given with the assumption that you're just not going to put sunscreen on every day. And if that's the case, I would say don't even bother with retinol or tretinoin because you're not going to get the best results from either one of them if you're still exposing your skin to UV light without any sort of protection. It's a little bit like, you know, you smoke a cigarette, but then you have a little bit of broccoli and you think it's going to, you know, the good from the broccoli is going to cancel out the bad from the smoking. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it's just not the way it works. Anthony, hey Anthony, hope you're well. Oh, that's what you're saying to me. I'm doing okay. Does BHA deal with pigmentation and stimulate collagen and glycosaminoglycans as well as AHAs? So that's an interesting question. In terms of glycosaminoglycan stimulation, I haven't seen specific research on that. It does stimulate collagen. I can't think of a comparative study that's looked at glycolic and salicylic acid in equivalent strengths. Glycolic, as well as lactic acid, it doesn't have as strong of an acid value as salicylic acid, so it takes more of those AHA ingredients to get the same effect in terms of exfoliation. That's why you don't see it's not apples to apples in terms of comparing 5%. Let me redo this. 2% salicylic acid with 2% glycolic acid. In fact, 2% glycolic acid is really too little to have that exfoliating effect. You'll get the water binding capacity, maybe even the glycosaminoglycan stimulus. Glycosaminoglycans, for those that don't know, is an ingredient in skin. Hyaluronic acid is a type of glycosaminoglycans. They are substances that are part of what's known as skin's extracellular matrix, which is essentially that area between the epidermis and the dermis, and then a bit deeper than that. So in terms of BHA and dark spots, pigmentation issues, it its effect in that regard, as I understand it, is really more about the exfoliation. And as you're getting rid of those dull, built-up layers of dead skin, there are some pigment cells in those layers that naturally will slough off along with the skin cells that are coming off that aren't doing that naturally on their own. But in terms of using salicylic acid or even glycolic acid for that matter as a means of fading a dark spot without any other type of topical, in the sense of the only way I could see that being visibly beneficial would be if we're talking higher strength peels, like a 50 or 70% glycolic peel or a 30 to 40% salicylic acid peel, because of the depth that those can reach in the skin versus what a topical skincare product can do. But like even in my case, I'm going through some peels now, about to have my third one for some hyperpigmentation that I have, and I look at the results from the peel as really working with the topicals that I use. It's just another way of combating the issue. And when the hyperpigmentation, when the dark spot, the dark patch is more stubborn, you really need to come at it with all guns blazing in terms of really, because the more treatments and ingredients that you can use that address the different pathways that cause that pigmentation to cluster and hold on, the better. And I know it's if I could be frank, it's a bitch, because it means you have to use more products, it's more steps, it's more money that you're spending on treatments, but it's what the research has shown is really going to make, the more that you do, the better results you're going to see. Particularly, now I'm talking more for stubborn discolorations or melasma, which is pretty much what I think I'm dealing with in my trouble spots. It's a much deeper pigmentation of the skin beyond where the topicals, BHA and AHAs can reach, whereas peels they're just going deeper into the skin when they're stronger like that. And of course, with those stronger peels comes a stronger risk of side effects and irritation that should be, I haven't experienced that, yay, but some people might, and you need to know how to handle that. So always be sure to talk with the person doing the procedure to make sure you have a very good understanding of what to expect, what could happen, and then how to deal with it. Sophia, hi Brian, about how long will it take for my 2% BHA to get rid of closed comedones, clogged pores on the forehead? I wish I had a time frame for you. You should, if you're new to BHA, you should start seeing some improvement fairly fast within the first few days of use. However, depending on the nature of the bumps, depending on how long you've had them, how deep they are in the skin, you may need to use the BHA for a longer period of time, for several weeks, in fact, before you see a significant improvement. And it may be with some of the bumps, particularly if they're milia, which they can be very, very stubborn, that buildup of dead cells, and you get kind of a kernel-like flesh-colored bump. That it isn't a pimple, it's not red, it's not acne, it is a milia, it's a closed comedone, a type of clogged pore. Those can take quite a long time to go away. They can be very stubborn. Sometimes you even have to go see a dermatologist, and doesn't this sound fun? They lance and drain every bump. Little needle, pop out the contents. Now, the upside to that is that once that is done and those contents are manually freed, your topicals, your salicylic acid, even in lower strength, should work much better and help prevent those pores from getting to that point in the future. Okay. Jessica, hi Brian, love the Calm 1%, Resist 2%. I've got rosacea, but those two BHAs work great for my skin. That's awesome. That's great to know. The King says, hi Brian, have an SPF question. Does Calm SPF 30 for combination skin normal to oily cause acne or is safe to use? I would never say any particular sunscreen, ours or somebody else's, causes acne. I think any formulator worth their salt, as the expression goes, is going to be as careful as possible around that type of thing. But even with all of that care, even with what we know about skin physiology, what causes the topical products that cause someone to break out can be highly variable. And it may not be that particular product. It could be the combination of products you're using, along with factors like where you live, how much oil your skin is producing, what treatment products you are or aren't using. There's just so many factors that is why it is impossible to say with 100% certainty, no, this product won't make you break out. We just don't know. We can get pretty close, but it's also why terms like non-comedogenic and non-acnegenic really aren't, they don't have a lot of meaning, really no meaning, because there are no regulatory standards. There's nothing that a brand would have to prove in order to put that claim on the label. You could basically formulate Crisco shortening and say it's a moisturizer, and then say it's non-comedogenic and won't cause acne, and you won't get in trouble. But there's no due diligence that you have to do in order to prove that assertion. So I think that particular sunscreen, because of its thinner texture, because of its matte finish, because the active ingredients, the mineral actives, are designed to stay in the uppermost layers of skin, they are a larger molecular size, they're not super small nano-sized, that the risk of that particular product making acne worse is very, very low. But I can't say it's absolute zero. In much the same way I wouldn't say to somebody, there's zero risk that you getting into a car won't involve some sort of a car accident. Think of all the factors when you're behind the wheel. You could be the safest, best, most conscientious, aware driver out there, but if somebody else isn't or makes a bad decision out of your control, you can still get into a car accident. Murphy's Law. No, that's a little different. Jenny, hi Brian, I have mild rosacea without acne. I'm currently using the 1% BHA, but I also have dry skin. Can I incorporate AHA as well? If so, where should I start? Thanks so much. So I would be curious. I think given that you have mild rosacea, it's worth exploring. I would start with, if you're talking about what we offer, I would start with the Resist Daily Smoothing Treatment, because that has 5% AHA as opposed to 8%, which are our other two in the Skin Perfecting line. And then we have a 10% in Resist, kind of the counterpart product to the Daily Smoothing Treatment I just mentioned. The other reason I'm mentioning the Daily Smoothing Treatment is because that has 3, if I'm not mistaken, curcuminoid ingredients. So they are remember how just a little bit ago I was talking about the EGCG from the green tea? So there are compounds in the turmeric plant, one of which is curcumin. And then if you go a little deeper, there are metabolites or compounds from the curcumin portion that are really potent anti-inflammatories. They're actually believed to be what makes whole curcumin so effective as an anti-inflammatory. So we put those in the Daily Smoothing Treatment, and for somebody in your situation with the mild rosacea, I think that would be the best place for you to start. Pay attention to how your skin responds. I would try seeing how the AHA itself works on your skin, how you respond to that before you start adding back the BHA. You may get to a point where you can apply both at the same time, but I suspect you'll probably be like me and have to go back and forth between the two. Whether that's one applied once daily and then you switch, or you put one on in the morning and one at night, depending on how your skin responds. Kim B, hi Bryan, I love the 2% BHA liquid formula with your brightening essence and C15. I was worried that you are discontinuing essence. Do you know? I don't know 100%, but I know that that has been discussed as a potential to discontinue. But for now, we are still selling it. I can find out definitively and let you know next week. But for right now, I don't think it's 100% official. Oh, Anthony says it is. Anthony must know something that I don't, which is not surprising because I certainly don't know everything, and we are a big line. So Anthony, I'm assuming you checked in with our client services team and they confirmed that. So darn. Well, we do have some other options, and you know, who knows what's in the pipeline for the future. That whole category, skin brightening, skin lightening, dark spot improvement, is pretty fascinating. Okay. And of course, C15 is not being discontinued. I can tell you that with certainty. Oh, I just scrolled. Ben says, hi, Bryan, what's the closest substitute to BHA9 since we don't have it in Europe? Do you guys have the advanced smoothing treatment 4% BHA, or not the advanced smoothing, the advanced pore refining treatment 4% BHA? I think you do. That would be the closest, and what I would do is cocktail that with the 2% BHA liquid, which I know you can get in Europe. What's the benefit of multi-level exfoliation by AHA? This is from WNDRMA, whose last name I just am not even going to try to pronounce. My pronunciation would not be good. The benefit is really more in the sense that you're getting a more specific, more controlled exfoliation, because each alpha hydroxy acid has a different molecular size, with glycolic acid being the very smallest. Hence, it's widely considered the most effective, and then lactic acid being a bit bigger. Lactic acid is kind of like the number 2. It's the Chewbacca to the Han Solo of glycolic acid, if you will forgive a Star Wars reference. The other AHA ingredients that aren't used as much, like your tartaric, malic, mandelic, citric, those are larger molecular sizes. So as the glycolic and the lactic go a bit further into the skin, you're just getting more of a controlled. That's what we mean by multi-level exfoliation. Does it mean that glycolic acid on its own isn't good enough? No, absolutely not. But for some people, that blend of acids can produce better results. Exactly why that is, though, I don't know. So that information and what we've seen over the years ourselves, what we've heard from customers, it's all anecdotal. But in terms of what the research shows these different acids can do on their own, you know, that's enough for us to go on and say, okay, here's how much we're going to put into this product. And because of the molecular size of this ingredient, you know, oh, isn't it interesting that this is essentially multi-level exfoliation? It's a bit more highly specific. It's the best. I think that's probably the best way to put it. And hopefully I didn't confuse you. Stephanie, hi Bryan. What are the pros and cons of using leaving on product versus a mask? This actually isn't specific to BHA. I prefer AHAs. Do masks work as well as leave on products? Ideally, you want to leave BHA on the skin for as long as possible. I mean, like overnight would be preferred to 20 minutes from a mask. So having said that, I do think that if you have a well-formulated BHA mask that you're leaving on your skin for 20 to 30 minutes, that you'll get some good results. I do think that you'll get better results from a leave-on product that you are keeping on your skin, again, overnight or even during the day. But for some people, that combination can be great. Oh, sorry, you guys. Husband's asking about dinner. I need to tell him that he does need to stop at the grocery store. And also, that he should know better than to text me during a live chat. Thank you for letting me do that. All right, back to the show. 5 more minutes left. Greetings from Germany. Hello, Maya. Dimitar. Hi, Brian. I suffer badly from sebaceous filaments on the nose. I use the 2% BHA liquid, the Resist line, and also the black one. BHA 9, the 4% BHA, and 1%. Right now, I see a lot of benefits from the BHA, just not the ones on the nose. What to do? So, Dimitar, you'll never get rid of sebaceous filaments. They are, as soon as you get rid of them, they start coming back because they are a natural part of the pilosebaceous unit. On some people, particularly on their noses, they're going to be more apparent. So the best you can do is already what you're doing by you need to kind of keep ahead of it. So as soon as they start forming, you're taking care of it. But it's sort of like that game called Whack-A-Mole, where as soon as you hit one mole, another one pops up. Yeah, I mean, it's just I used to think like a blackhead is something that happens when the excess sebum oxidizes as it reaches the surface, and there are things that you can do to keep blackheads from forming, but you can't stop your oil glands from producing more oil, at least not without resorting to a very strong oral form of vitamin A called isotretinoin. And even then, you're not going to be on that drug forever. When you are off that medication, your sebaceous glands will start producing oil again. The thinking is, though, or the hope is that they won't produce the excessive amounts that they used to. So I'm sad to say that sebaceous filaments can never, you can't get rid of them permanently. They're just always going to be there, and in some people they're worse than others. I think what you're doing right now to manage it, though, is great, and probably the best you can do via skincare. Okay, a couple more questions. Please, Brian, this is MCMJ Clemense. I'm from Europe and I cannot use benzoyl peroxide. What ingredient do you absolutely recommend to try in top of the Resist 2% BHA that is not totally enough for my acne? Azelaic acid, hands down. Azelaic acid, salicylic acid to help with acne if you can't use benzoyl peroxide or you have a hard time finding it. It's amazing. It's actually, on a personal note, it's my go-to now when I get a pimple. I find, and I'm someone who responds well to benzoyl peroxide. Just 2.5% works really well for me. But I like that azelaic acid delivers so many additional benefits on top of the antibacterial kick you get for acne-causing bacteria. Okay. All right, one more question. Who haven't we heard from? Taking questions from that person. Teresa, hi Brian. Is PC also working on the LSF50 for the clear line? LSF50 for the clear line. I should know that acronym and it's just not coming to me right now. In terms of a sunscreen for the clear line, though, the one we have, the ultralight one we have right now, is the one that we have. So we don't have a new one in the works for that line. Okay, let me take a last question from Anna. Anna V. I found the 2% BHA liquid a bit too irritating for my skin lately. Would the 1% lotion from Calm still help with the congestion and blackheads? Absolutely, it should. If you are still a little bit shy about going down to a 1% strength, you think that might be too much of a dip for you, then I would steer you toward the either the Resist Daily Pore Refining Treatment with 2% BHA or the Clear Anti-Redness Exfoliating Solution Regular Strength. You do not have to have acne to use any of the products. Well, let me put it this way. Except for the benzoyl peroxide products in Clear, you don't have to have acne to get benefit from those products. And the 2% in the Clear and the 2% version in Resist for normal to oily skin both have a different penetration system than the 2% BHA liquid. So try one of those if you think the 1% BHA lotion may be not quite enough for you. And if you have stubborn congested pores, I would say definitely do that. Don't try the 1%. Try one of the less penetrating 2% versions first. All right, that's a wrap, you guys. Thank you so much. If I didn't get to your question, post it in the comments section. I'll come back in the next couple days and address it there. And as always, thank you for joining me. This hour goes by way too fast. I'll be back next Wednesday. It's the new day for the live chats. You can come back to our channel and watch it anytime, though, and I will see you next week.